Okay, everybody. One more time. I am back here live at the Experience Trade Show again, and I have Dr. Gavin McGregor Skinner with us from GBAC and ISSA. I think it's the easiest way to describe it.
We've got a lot of acronyms there,
Yes,
haven't
we
we?
do. Yes, lots of initials. Hey, one of the things I really want to tell you most about this interview is I get to stop for a few minutes. We have been talking to so many people today and doing so many things. It's been a very, very busy show the last 2 days.
The energy level at the experience here in Las Vegas has just been amazing. But the people that have come here looking for ways to improve, people have come here with looking for solutions, people are looking for collaboration. I was just in a conversation a minute ago where someone said, "Well, I tried this, it didn't work the way I was expected," and someone else in the audience went, "Oh, I do it this way," and suddenly you've got this translation, this sharing of information that's going to improve our industry and improve their businesses because they came to the experience. It's just phenomenal.
Well, you did a talk this morning, and it was a newer concept than a lot of people are familiar with. And that's all I've been getting all day long. People coming up to say, "Hey, you were in the interview. What was that he was talking about? Do you have any information?" I said, "No, you're going to talk to Gavin yourself. Let him explain this and get a training course on it."
I think what we're talking about, Lance, is really radical. It's radical in a way that if people can understand that harmful, detrimental germs like bacteria, mold, yeast don't live in isolation. They live in cities of microorganisms. They live in communities. And those cities of microorganisms are called biofilms. But our whole approach to remediation, restoration, cleaning has been one bacteria at a time. The way that we look at our cleaning products, our disinfectants, where we should be more focused on how does a community of bacteria survive on a surface? How do they help each other? And how does that make our job more challenging? And what processes and products and tools and equipment do we use to create a healthier and safe environment? But more importantly, show it by data, show it by information.
One of the conversations I had with somebody after your talk was they were asking about, well, I'm not quite sure. I mean, about seeing a bacteria in a city. And I said, well, look at it this way. Your eyes aren't good enough to see a bacteria. When you see something growing there, that's a city of bacteria.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And this is really important that bacteria will grow on surfaces and it's colorless, it's invisible, and there might be 3 to 4 cell layers thick, and we won't see that. But in a biofilm, different types of bacteria work together and they produce a protective covering. So it's a little bit like a building with scaffolding all around the building, but the scaffolding is solid. It's all filled in and it protects the inside of the building. So imagine that these bacteria do this protective covering. It's called EPS. And that protects the bacteria inside, which makes it more challenging, more difficult for the disinfectant or the clean product to actually get into into the harmful bacteria and kill them. And we find that because we're not focusing on that, we tend to go back and go, "Oh, I removed this, or I thought I cleaned it, but now the problem's even worse, or it came back." And so we've got to actually change our processes, look at it, revisit our products and tools, and look at this more as we are dealing with cities of microorganisms, not just 1 or 2.
Well, you had mentioned this morning something that really I found astounding, that some of the things that we use to treat the biological contaminants, the bacteria in this case, kill the bacteria, but it gets replaced by a different type of bacteria that could be worse.
Yeah, so there's people like Greg Whiteley in Australia, Stephanie Dancer in Scotland, who've been researching biofilms for years. And I want to emphasize biofilms been known in so many other industries. We'll take all those lessons learned from other industries and we'll bring them into our industry. Mm-hmm. But the importance is that with this protective layer, when you remove, say, use a disinfectant, research has shown if you remove harmful bacteria with a disinfectant, then when they come back, it's more likely to get more harmful bacteria. If you use a probiotic product, or if you use an enzyme cleaner, or even if you just use soap and water, like just a detergent, we find that when you remove the harmful bacteria, non-harmful, so environmental bacteria come in and take over that space. So it means that, yes, you've still got bacteria on the surface, but they're beneficial bacteria. They're environmental bacteria that are not harmful.
It's like within your digestive system, there's good bacteria and bad bacteria. And
Correct.
you need the good bacteria.
Yeah, and we need to appreciate from our industry that there is good bacteria. So we see biofilms being used for waste management. We see biofilms being used in the food production industry, all for good purposes.
Septic systems.
Correct.
Okay. Well, you had mentioned about the scaffolding around protecting the bacteria. Is that like positive and negative gram bacteria, or is that something in addition to what you're talking about?
Yeah, so there is that definition between the different types of bacteria. What we find in a biofilm, we can get lots of different species of bacteria. We can find that there is certain species like a bacillus, which secretes it's like a protein, a polysaccharide, a peptide, different products that then protect Staphylococcus aureus. And we know that Staphylococcus aureus causes skin infections, for example.
MRSA you're talking about.
Yeah. So drug resistant type Staph aureus. But what we're finding through research, and we've known this for a while, that some bacteria work together with Staphylococcus aureus and protect it. And so we have to understand that when we pick up a cleaning product or a disinfectant, and we always say, read the label, and it says effective against one bacteria. In the real world, that's not real.
Right.
In the real world, those bacteria are living as a colony, as a biofilm. And so we want to help work with our manufacturers to start producing product that actually works on this city of microorganisms.
Do they use anything like an antibiotic to treat these biofilms?
That's a great question. So a lot of the drug-resistant germs that we see in hospitals have led through antibiotic use, even cleaning product use. And so biofilms actually lead to being resistant, making the antibiotics less effective. So it's really important as we try to target, what areas do we target? As we target the cell wall, for example, as we target the replication, multiplication, growth areas of the bacteria. So it's really important that a lot of people who work in, say, hospitals understand this. A lot of people that work in the food industry understand this. Those that work maybe in the nuclear industry, we get biofilms, pipes, the plumbers, you see biofilms build up on pipes. They understand that there is ways of removing those bacteria. But even in the medical world, we understand that biofilms can lead to greater antibiotic resistance, and that's a big problem.
So with this removal, like you're talking about pipes, if you remove that sludge that's in there, what do you do with it not to contaminate something else?
Yeah, great question, Lance. So let's go back to our definition of cleaning. And everyone's got to be clear on this. It's what makes us professional, what makes us essential as an industry is that we know how to remove. So cleaning is the process of removing. The next step in that process is disposing of what you've just removed in a way that's safe. And that's what makes us professional, where other people might remove it and don't know how to dispose of it. So yeah, when you get buildup of a biofilm in a pipe on a surface, yes, we've got to remove it, but we've also got to know how to dispose of it safely.
Is there any regulations on that, like there is on asbestos and lead, that you can't just throw it out or send it to a dump?
It's a good question. I work a lot in high consequence diseases. So if I'm dealing with an Ebola outbreak, yes, there are rules. There are regulations. There are requirements of what we can do and can't do with Ebola waste, with Ebola vomit and diarrhea as we clean that up. Yes. So we have to, so it's really important. Are those rules well known? I don't think they are. I think this is an opportunity for education, awareness, and training to help people be more professional.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned septic systems earlier, there's all kinds of bacteria down there growing, and it's going into the ground. It can seep into well water and stuff like that. Is that a concern when you try to clean these systems out?
It is. It is. So we know that the chemicals we use, we know the germs that we're removing can actually, if we don't do this properly, can get into other systems. And so it's so important. We know that within our industry, cross-contamination is a big issue.
Yep.
Yeah, we can use the same cleaning cloth, whether it be a microfiber or a cotton rag or a mop. And if we don't use it properly, we can spread it to other rooms. And one of the big cases that I investigated a few years ago was a norovirus outbreak in a hotel. And it affected, 350 people got sick at 9 different events over a 30-day period. And what was the problem? A dirty vacuum cleaner
Spreading it from one place to another.
every day. And that kept the outbreak going. And that was a norovirus outbreak.
Amazing. Well, it was educational, and everybody left talking about that presentation this morning. It was looking at the industry differently, shaking it up, definitely.
I think you're right, Lance. And it's what we're trying to do is trying to create opportunities. And so I talked a lot about how clean is a locker room and how does the indoor air quality in a locker room, as well as what's on the surfaces, how dirty the surfaces are or how clean the surfaces are, and how does that affect performance of athletes. And that's known. There's been science, there's been research done on that. And then how do we, here in our industry, work with the professional athletes, college athletes, high school athletes to ensure that we get them at their peak performance, because we, again, focus on cleaning for health, but we focus on indoor air quality as well as surfaces.
So I can see the professional gambling industry getting involved in the health of the athletes' indoor air quality.
Yeah, really important, Lance. There's a couple of studies out there that we know that have, they've been looked at Major League Baseball pitchers, quarterbacks from the NFL, and how that the quality of the air in the locker room, in their environment, actually affects their reaction rates, for example. That's known. I was working with a professional football team just recently, and I was talking to the coaches and the players about injuries. And they said, oh, yeah, we get cuts, abrasions, and they don't heal. And I said, well, that's a biofilm problem. The biofilm was formed on that burn, that injury on your leg, and it doesn't heal. And there's been some well-published articles where football players have taken months, even years to heal. And what it was interesting, they thought it was the playing field, and went, no, it's not. It might be, but what more importantly, it's this environment here in the locker room, the gymnasium, the hot tub, the cold tub that keeps reinfecting, that keeps that infection cycle going.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing stuff.
Which I hope is opportunities. I hope people can see this as, if we start doing what other industries are doing when it comes to biofilm. So like the food industry, dairy farms, if you start looking at biofilm in the way they have those conversations in hospitals, for example, on medical equipment, if we take those lessons learned, apply them to our industry and put that in a way that, yes, we can increase performance of professional athletes, we can create safer and healthier indoor spaces, because we understand how microorganisms, how germs live in the environment.
So slightly off topic, when you deal with mold, does that exist in the same biofilm environment as bacteria?
Yes, it does. Yes. Yeah. So I want to emphasize biofilms can occur in both wet or moist environments, but also dry environments. And so when we look at mold, and I think, I was just asked about some social media postings and what my opinion was on the way that they were addressing mold. And I said, yeah, I appreciate they're trying, but what they're not doing is cleaning the mold, removing the mold based on science or what we know, what Normie knows, what you teach in the Normie courses. And wouldn't it be great if we could take that passion, that enthusiasm of the social media, the TikTok people, and actually give them a solution that's known to be proven by science to work, because they're trying to educate a greater audience, and they're doing their best, but not everything they're doing is 100% correct.
And unfortunately, some of the people putting information out there are putting out, if not all of the correct information, a slanted view of the information to make sales and for other reasons. And that's unfortunate.
It is, but it's what makes our industry so special, because we deal with passionate people. And when you have passionate, enthusiastic people, you have opinions. And unfortunately, some of those opinions, even in the year of 2024, are still, not just decades old, but centuries old. That's last year's that was the information we had in the 1800s. We don't do that now. We clean based on data, based on science, based on all those lessons learned based on all the research and development that's gone into our industry. And we do it because this is what we know. This is what we know to do. And so important that as professionals, we translate and share that information. So those influencers out there are wonderful, but what we want them is to say, this is what works. Get everyone to do this.
Informed influencers
That's-
are what we want.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And
Yep.
not somebody just because it's a hot topic, running with it, the shock jocks, as you would call them.
Yep.
From radio. It's really people that are informed, being the influencers for the right reason.
And that's a really good point because mold can be everywhere.
Yep.
And it's not a disaster. It's not a catastrophe. It's not an emergency. It's giving the people the right knowledge, tools, and equipment to address mold themselves so they do it safely and they create safer indoor spaces for their families and their loved ones.
Absolutely. Well, I know I've been talking since about 8 o'clock this morning.
I
I think you have too.
I am just so impressed that here in Las Vegas, I had the experience that the level of energy is pretty high.
Oh, very high.
The level of
Sure.
engagement and the level of sharing of information has been fantastic. Yeah, I don't think from probably 8 o'clock this morning till whatever time it is this afternoon, it's been constant conversation. It's been wonderful.
It is nonstop. I mean, we have a sign up board here for people that want to do interviews, and sometimes you run over a few minutes and they're waiting, tapping their foot, is it my turn yet? And we get there as fast as we can.
And I think that's what's so important, Normie, from an example of what Normie does as an organization, what ISSA does as an organization. We take these wonderful people and we try to form functional teams.
Teams is a key word.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's going to take. Not one person, not one company is going to fix the problems that we have with our environment.
It is. It's going to take a team. And the thing is, we can do that. I'm very confident that we have, amongst us, we have the potential, the opportunity to get really good people together to form functional teams that go back to cleaning and ensuring that what we do is professional, makes our industry essential, and it elevates where we should be in society, in the community, in discussions. Because if we don't do our job, then everyone complains. If we do our job, we don't get recognized. And that's what we need to change.
I think one of the biggest problems our industry has is we're dealing with microscopic entities. And people, if they don't see it, smell it, taste it, or hear it, it doesn't exist until they get sick from it. It's not like smog. It's not something you smell in the air. And that's really, I think, the hardest thing that we have to overcome.
And that's a great point, Lance. If you're seeing the bacteria, if you're seeing the mold, if you can smell it, if you're getting impacted by it, then it's too late.
Right. But it's got your interest,
Yeah.
or your attention at the very least.
Yeah. And that puts us in the game of prevention. How do you sell prevention?
Yeah. From something you can't see.
Correct.
I look forward to finding the answer on that with you.
We are going to work together. And I think that as we do that, and especially with the people we've talked to here in Vegas at the experience, as long as we take that team approach, we're going to have a significant impact and we're going to do great things.
Absolutely. Just as a tease, I just want to throw out a website, NormiPro, NORMIPRO, ETF, environmentaltaskforce.org. Keep an eye on that site. A lot more coming.
Oh, I think it's a wonderful idea, Lance. It's going to be brilliant.
I thank you for your time. We'll do this, I'm sure, quite a bit more as we go on over the next few months. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's important that if anyone needs help, reach out to us. That's what we're here to do.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lance.